Can immigrants help Canada find more international businesses? If you're not born in Canada, but you're now doing business here, you're in the right place. Click here the subscribe button, set up the alert, and if the content of this video is something you like, let us know by clicking the like button. So here's one thing that's very interesting in these crazy days that we're living. I'm recording this video on April 11, 2025. So there's all this uncertainty about tariffs and global trade and what's going to happen. And as you know, the content of this channel, it's a lot of information for immigrant business people doing business in Canada. And I was thinking, well, okay, how can our people help, right? Like immigrant business people doing business in Canada, there's all these uncertainties. So here's one thing. There are other videos here where we mentioned like Canada has one of the largest number of trade agreements all over the world. I don't know if there's any nation that has more bilateral and multilateral trade agreements than Canada, but Canada certainly has a lot. And that's a good thing. That means the infrastructure is already there, deals have already been negotiated, conditions have been already agreed to, and there are frameworks, there are harmonization of rules, tariff rates have already been negotiated. So there's a lot of the infrastructure work that has already been done decades ago, and they are all valid right now, right? So Canada has today, April 2025, a lot of valid international trade agreements. In addition to that, Canada also has a lot of resources available to help Canadian companies that want to do business internationally, export or import. There is Global Affairs Canada, which is part of the Canadian government, but it's pretty much trade commissioners that are focused on helping open and grow international markets for Canadian businesses. And they are all over the country, like mostly in Ottawa, but then you have a lot of regional offices with people that know very well in very good level of detail everything about foreign markets. And then you have the in-country offices, which are also very well staffed and usually actually with local people that were hired there. So if you are in Spain, you probably have some Spanish people that work in the Canadian consulate, right? Try to help Canadian companies do more business there. And in Brazil and other countries, same thing. So this is all important part of talking about the infrastructure. So yes, we already have the trade agreements in place and we have people on the ground trying to help. Okay, what else can we have then? There is a general goodwill in general, okay, with Canada internationally. Canadian suppliers are perceived as competent, right? Typically do a good job in providing whatever product or service that they provide. They're seen as reliable, somebody that meets their commitments. You know, you promise something, you deliver according to you promised. Good quality, the product performs as you promised and all that. Canadians are also perceived in many places as being very fair. Okay, you know, like, yes, that's, there's typically a transparency and understanding why is the value and why we charge this and why the terms are that. It's never like a bullying mentality. It's more an explanation mentality. Let's understand, right? And to be quite honest, they are perceived as nice people everywhere. So there is typically a goodwill, like people are open to talking to Canadians almost everywhere in the world. Of course, like everything, there are exceptions, but that's the general thing we see. And then let's look internally now. Let's look at what we have in Canada. So in the region of Toronto, the largest city in Canada, we have 52% of the population was not born in Canada. I believe the number for the country as a whole is about 23%, which is by far the largest proportion of any of the developed countries. Okay, but what does it mean? Yes, we have a lot of immigrants, but so what? Well, this means a lot of things that are very important when doing international business. The first thing, you have language skills. Speaking the local language is always something that brings an enhanced level of comfort. How many times have people been at meetings where the decision maker is not 100% fluent in the language where the negotiation is being conducted. So you need to have an interpreter taking things. So you have margin for misunderstanding and a whole bunch of things, right? It's not the same thing to build confidence with somebody that doesn't speak the same language as you. However, for immigrants that live in Canada and they speak the language from back home, natural, and they speak without an accent. And then, of course, with that, it's not only language, there's a whole rapport, cultural fit. You know what kind of jokes you can make and what kind of jokes you don't. Or you can talk about the foods that you both love that are very specific from a given region. So there's a whole new level of rapport, of connection, of feeling connected to the other part. It's like building the trust that's necessary to do business. And in addition to speaking the language, understanding the culture, there's, of course, naturally a whole network or existing or that can be accessible. How many people live in Toronto or in Montreal or in Vancouver, Calgary, whatever they live in Canada, they can pick up the phone and call somebody back home and say, listen, I would like to talk to somebody over there that buys or sells this kind of thing or has expertise in this kind of thing. Do you know anybody? Chances are your local contact could be a relative, a friend, a former coworker. They will know somebody in their network. So the networks that we have, I'm talking immigrant people in Canada, the networks that we have back home are incredible. Like very rarely somebody born and raised in Canada is gonna be able to achieve that level of penetration in the network, right? With the same cultural fit, with the language skills and all that, building the rapport and the trust necessary to do business. So that's a very powerful reality that immigrants have in their favor if they are trying to help their Canadian business buy or sell from other countries where they're from. There are blind spots though. It's not everything wonderful. And especially people who are from a certain geography and move to another geography as grown-ups and as adults, there are things that you bring with you that are really not aligned with the new reality, right? So it's important to pay attention to blind spots, or like I call the banana peels. It's like, am I trying to talk to this person like they are from the other culture? So the benefit of immigrants that currently already live in Canada is that they already have experienced the two cultures. So they are better equipped, but not always 100% ready. Sometimes there are still a lot of blind spots and people don't really know how to talk about, because in Canada, people are too polite to mention. They don't want to come across as xenophobic or racist or whatever. So people are not going to tell me as an immigrant that I'm not getting something 100% right. They like in Canada to let you figure out by yourself. And those of you that are maybe listening here that happen to be immigrants in Canada, but if you have Canadian-born children, the children are going to tell you, like my kids told me, right, when they were growing up, said, hey, Dad, but this is not really like here, things are a little different. And sometimes, oh, really, that's true. So anyways, I've been in Canada for more than 25 years now. So of course, I had time to learn a lot of these things myself. But there is definitely a need to align between the two cultures. Even though you speak the language, you understand the culture, you can have the network, but do you understand what both sides are trying to accomplish so that a deal, a transaction, and a relationship, a commercial relationship that is steady and flourishes over time can actually be born? For that, you can't forget that what's obvious for one side is not same thing that what's obvious to the other side. We need to be able to make this connection and this realignment. And I know this can be, and then people say, oh yeah, it's going to be too much work to try to do business with whatever back home. But remember, it's a good moment, right? Every firm in Canada now is trying to find alternative sources to buy products or to sell products because there's a lot of uncertainty globally in terms of international trade. So if this all seems to be a bit overwhelming and a bit of a lonely path, that's why we are here. We have our platform here that's called Your Business in Canada, where we guide you through the process and you follow this process together with other people that are trying to do the same thing as you, okay? So click here the link in the description and come on board.